Death is a vast mystery, but there are two things we can say about it. It is absolutely certain that we will die, and it is uncertain when or how we will die. The only surety we have then is this uncertainty about the hour of our death, which we seize on as the excuse to postpone facing death directly.
He's dying, but not well. The fear in this room is palpable. Look at his eyes, angst. The way he clings to me, as if that were keeping him from falling into some abyss. Why? Hi, my name is Vasily, and I'm not dying. Well, we're all dying, aren't we? Perhaps it's more accurate to say I am healthy and living well. I am a student who took the opportunity to immerse myself in the culture of Meadowlark Hills retirement community in Manhattan, Kansas by living here full-time for a semester. Why? Well, to better understand myself and the world around me. How? By listening to and conversing with the most seasoned and savvy existential veterans around me, two of them in particular. Meadowlark Hills prides itself on the fact that people come here to live, not to die. There's a philosophy here that views the last stretch of someone's life as a time for learning and growth, not stagnation. From the get-go, this philosophy was the inspiration for my inquiry here, which would take me through a series of insights, leading up to a mind-boggling question, to which there is a potentially life-changing answer. The question: what does it mean to die well, here and now, and how can this be accomplished? What does a good death look like to you?
A good death. Painless and quick.
Well, I want to die quick, with my boots on.
I would like to die in my sleep at night.
These answers were logical, but I realized they implied avoidance. This observation, coupled with abundant literature stating our society does not like looking at death, guided me into my next question. Why do you think death is an avoided topic of conversation?
I think because a lot of people have a great uncertainty about what's going to happen after death.
What our culture does is it approaches impermanence and death as something adversarial, something to be conquered, something to be put off as long as possible, or avoided like it doesn't exist.
I suppose it's denial. We don't want to think that someday we'll go away. We have it so good here, why would we want to move on?
Perhaps the deepest reason why we are afraid of death is because we do not know who we are. We believe in a personal, unique and separate identity, but if we dare to examine it, we find that this identity depends entirely on an endless collection of things to prop it up: our name, our biography, our partners, family, home, job, friends, credit cards. It is on their fragile and transient support that we rely for our security. So when they're all taken away, will we have any idea of who we really are?
The realization that you are the topic of that monologue, and reflecting on that, can prompt some serious discomfort, as it did in my case. Here I am, investing so much meaning in these transient objects in my life that will inevitably one day leave me. So I asked myself, what else could I possibly use to create a meaning and identity that could never be taken away from me? I figured there must be a wealth of literature on this subject, so that is where my search for this answer began. What I found in literature was both exciting and troubling. I found common themes throughout various philosophies and theologies that compelled me to realize and come to terms with my physical impermanence, the futility of finding meaning in transient objects, and the danger of an unchecked ego that inherently seeks comfort and security in a world that is constantly changing. I was compelled to find meaning and comfort in something greater than myself. This thing is what people call God, the true self, love, or compassion. I began discussing what I had found with my retired friends at Meadowlark.
So, I'm under the impression that suffering is caused by people's inability to accept impermanence and relinquish their grasp of holding on to things tightly in their life.
Yeah, I agree. And there's nothing permanent in existence as far as we know. Everything is in motion. And if it's not in motion, essentially what we have then is a cessation of what exists. There's always change. I accept change. I have no problem with that, personally.
How have you transcended your ego?
By coming to a resolution that that old thing, God is love, and love can continue. If that continues, then that's what this is all about.
So, tell me if I'm correct. Would you say your meaning and identity can be construed as being founded on love?
Yes. And family.
And family.
And family is everybody. I don't care who you are, where you are. If you're a human being, you're part of the family.
So then you're really in tune with this idea of oneness. Humanity is one.
Oh yeah, sure.
Would you take a step further and say all life is one instead of just humanity?
Sure.
Alive regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Kids want everything done for their parents, not because their parents aren't ready to die and need to die, but because they will be losing something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they may probably don't think of themselves as selfish,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of doing the things to mend bad feelings, to encourage, to dream about what they've learned, tell stories about what they've learned, and they just want to fight to keep that body that's done
Mm-hmm.
alive, and that I hope we can get past that. And I think that one of the developmental tasks, if you will, of my generation is to answer the questions of, what did I do, and what was worthy, and to forgive yourself for those things you didn't think you'd done properly, so that you're ready for and not afraid of giving up.
So these ideas of permanence, they sort of necessitate grasping of ego. This idea that you are a self that will continue forever, or that you are this soul that will be in existence for eternity. It creates an infatuation with the self and a singular focus on the self. And this sort of focus on this yourself as separate from the world and as separate from others and as separate from the universe. It may not be the implicit or the explicit goal of this of these ideas of permanence, but it comes from it, and it makes it extremely difficult to transcend these boundaries of grasping and permanence and achieve this contentness that you can get from, and this essence of joy that you can get from relishing the loss the same way that you relish the experience.
One of the chief reasons we have so much anguish and difficulty facing death is that we ignore the truth of impermanence. We so desperately want everything to continue as it is that we have to believe that things will always stay the same. Reflect on this. The realization of impermanence is paradoxically the only thing we can hold on to, perhaps our only lasting possession.
I had arrived at an answer. Dying well is essentially accomplished through an ability to let go. The ability to let go is a tool that is forged from the transcendence of the grasping ego, which is itself forged from a realization of impermanence. Finally, one's ability to let go opens up new horizons and possibilities in terms of creating a meaning and identity that will never be taken away from you. I was excited about where this train of thought was going, but I wondered what this philosophy in action would look like in real life. And then it happened. As if it was divinely inspired, I started seeing the application of this philosophy everywhere around me. One day, Lauren gave me this cryptogram.
Know what you are doing, love what you are doing, and believe in what you are doing. That's by Will Rogers.
It summed up what I had been thinking about perfectly. Know what you are doing would entail the acknowledgement of life and its impermanence. Love what you are doing, a reference to the best course of action to take in the face of impermanence, and believe in what you are doing, being all right with your acceptance, and using your belief to create a marvelous reality for yourself. A couple days later, Kay showed me a poem that she holds close to her heart and whose message she uses to find beauty in her life.
To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing that your whole life depends upon it. And when it's time to let it go, let it go.
Is that unbelievable? And then a few days after that, my roommate Jordan blew me away with his own interpretation and application of impermanence.
Difference is made when one learns to embrace impermanence. When this happens, suddenly the whole world can open up to you. So the mountains that you've been meaning to climb, you'll climb them. The roads that you've been meaning to explore, you'll explore them. The girl you've been meaning to call or to love, you'll love her. The book you've been meaning to read, you'll read it. Life will be relished, but not grasped. Because when it's grasped and you lose these things, it is extremely painful and depressing. And it seems meaningless because the idea was that they would be permanent and held on to forever. But when you can accept the impermanence, then while you will still miss these things, there's a joy in this loss and a joy in this missing. Because for every pang of loss that you feel, you can see it as an ode to the joy that you got from the same thing. So in this sense, the very pain that you feel when you lose this becomes in itself a sort of beauty.
These people help me realize that the creation of a beautiful meaning and identity that transcends the ego and the myopic focus on the self, that is founded instead on love and compassion, isn't something that should be strived for just in the face of death. It is something that can be realized now. I realized that by dying well, I meant living well. The two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are synonymous. All of our human journeys are running parallel. We are all trying to live and die well, whether you are young or old, as if all part of one whole. The ecstatic realization I had arrived at can be appropriately showcased by one final question. Can you imagine what the world's state of affairs would look like if everyone lived as if they were dying well?